That's a magic number. Yes, it is. It's the magic number.
What does it all mean?
Hello and welcome to the final Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy, which is me, Matthew Syed. For this show, we have decided to tackle yet more meaty topics. Do team building trips really work? Who would you invite over for dinner? And why does sport matter? As always, a huge thank you to everyone who's got in touch over the entire series using the hashtag FredSavSide. But before we get into the first topic, guys, the last show of what has been an epic run.
Can't believe it. Just one of the best things I've done in my life. And basically because...
In your life?
Yeah, in terms of media.
Really?
In terms of media, I would say, yeah, because people actually start liking me. And I can't believe it. Honestly, the adulation and people coming up to you all the time saying, love the podcast, working with great people, all the backroom staff, Matthew. First time I met Matthew, great, you.
Thank you.
You times,
you.
you.
There's a lot of love.
Seriously, it has been absolutely... I get up on a Monday morning thinking, oh yeah, great, I've got the podcast today.
Mondays have been good, haven't they?
Brilliant.
Fabulous. I've really looked forward. I didn't know what to expect at all. Fred, we had met a few times.
Yeah.
Got on well. Rob, didn't know much about you except
Okay,
what I've seen.
Right, do you know when you said, you've alluded to it a little bit before, and you said you was a bit worried about doing it. I remember sat in a coffee shop at the gym with Robbie and Jono, the big boss, when they're saying, what do you want to do, talk about it.
Yep.
Your name was mentioned, if he'd do it. But what was you expecting? Because we met a little bit.
Yeah.
What was you expecting when you met Robbie Savage?
So
Or what was your initial thoughts?
So when Jono phoned, I was in a cab. He mentioned the concept, talking about...
Wasn't Robbie's mate, was it? Pick you up anyway.
Yeah, he said, hey, Matthew, what do you think? I got a friend down from Wrexham. So when he mentioned your name, I thought, yeah, brilliant. And then Robbie, I think, and Robbie Savage, what I associate with him is a belligerent, slightly gobby person.
What does belligerent mean?
Aggressive.
Right. You're focusing on the wrong word there. You just said gobby, and you focused on belligerent.
But let me give some love back to Robbie, because I think we've become pretty good friends over the course of the podcast. I like you hugely. I think you're an amazing person, not just on the show. I mean, okay, this isn't going to be a loving. This isn't going to be, for people listening, this is not going to be an entire loving, but you have been brilliant away from the show, phoning up, coming up with topics, and working with an amazing backroom staff, Stan and Mike, the producer, who is a genius. And it's worked so well. I've enjoyed it. You mentioned people come up to you and say stuff. I was at a bar on Saturday night, and the amount of people who came over and mentioned the podcast. So I think it has been fantastic. And Fred, you've been immense too, mate.
But that's been amazing, the amount of people who've come up and spoken about the podcast. I never expected that. And I must admit, I don't usually do this, but I found myself looking at the charts.
Yeah.
And I really, it's just completely not the sort of thing I'd expect myself to do.
Yeah.
Checking that we're number one in sport. And then you look at all categories and you see we've held the position.
Yeah.
And
Number one,
I'm expecting it to drop off a cliff.
But do you
I
know
must
what?
admit, I've been expecting we'll be at 100 soon.
Can I
But
say?
we stayed up there, so thanks everyone. Thank you.
Can I say, have you retweeted any adulation? One person from the podcast?
No.
Still?
No, I might have. I retweeted one thing, which I can't remember what it was, but I found it quite funny. But it wasn't actual adulation; it was about you, and I can't remember what it was.
So,
I think it was adulation towards you.
So for the final podcast, will you retweet one person from the podcast?
Break the habit of a
Break
life.
the habit.
Do you know what I'll do? Do you know what I'll do?
Yeah.
Because I don't agree with it, and for people who don't know, I just can't get my head around retweeting on Twitter when you get a bit of compliments.
Yeah.
So
That's all we do, isn't it?
That's all we do, yeah.
But it's the equivalent of walking down the street saying, look at me, how good I am.
Yeah.
But what I will do, I will retweet the sickliest tweet we get about the series.
Okay.
A real gusher.
Yeah, okay.
Topic number one. This has been sent in by George Dunn. After England trained with the Marines, George wants to know, do team building trips actually work? What are our experiences? What have been the ups and the downs? Fred, what's your take on this?
Pointless. Absolutely pointless.
You don't think that you get to know each other better, that you develop certain characteristics
What,
that
by
can help?
being shoved under some water by an army man? Why do you?
Have you been on it? Have you been on any?
Yeah, I've been on them. Complete waste of time. It's time I'll never get back. Like, these team building exercises, you're part of a team. You're playing sport. You're doing the one thing that you wanted to do.
Yep.
I went on one. First one I went on was to the Lake District. It was December. It was cold. I got pulled into the office early doors for not taking it seriously. I was watching people.
Who was the coach?
The coach was Phil Neal, because I was with the under-19s, who then went through the England stuff with me.
Yep.
And I can't even remember who the coach was. That's how good it was.
But you got dragged in. You weren't.
Phil Neal pulled me in the office because I wasn't buying into it. We was pushing people through pieces of string between trees. I can't remember as a kid growing up watching the television thinking, you know what I'd want to do when I get older? I want to play cricket, but above all, I want to push people through pieces of string and trees. We had this other one where me and Rob Key, right, what you had was you was on a harness and you had to trust your mates to pull you up. And then meanwhile, you're putting beer crates under your feet to see how high you can get.
Yep.
So it's a trust exercise. I'll be honest, I didn't trust half the team. And being hoisted up on beer crates didn't make me trust them anymore. So what me and Keezy did...
Big crane for you, that
Oh, yeah, me and Keezy started running a book.
Yeah, but on who would get the most
Yeah,
points?
but then we started match fixing and kicking crates and pulling ropes. So we got dragged in the office for not taking it seriously.
So what was the call? Which was that when you're under 19 again?
Under 19s. And then I went on one. I was having a shocker with Lancs. I was in the second team and I needed to get my career back on track. So I asked to go on the academy with the young kids when I was 23. But before that, they had a team building exercise at Sandhurst.
Yeah,
Do you know the captains,
military base, yeah.
where they train the captains. So me and Keezy were there. And half of it was we're going out first thing in the morning. We're doing manoeuvres.
Yeah.
We're staying out overnight with a survival ration pack. And then we're coming back the following day. So me and Keezy, we've got these rations. I said, Rob, this is not enough. We can't survive 48 hours on this. I'll nip to Sainsbury's. So I nipped to Sainsbury's, right? I bought big bags of crisps and M&Ms and I'm stuffing them in my bag. And we get out on manoeuvres and I've been given a group of people. I'm a team leader. Right? So I've got Keezy, I think Army might have been there, Stephen Kirby, a couple of others. And we've got these heavy bags that the military carry. And they're heavy then. They're heavy. I'm not signed up for this. I carry my own cricket bag, but I don't need this. So we set off. And the grounds are Sandhurst and massive.
Yep.
We got all kit on, we're in camouflage, and we're walking through. And I've had a look at the map. And I've realised that we've got to go, we walk about 20 miles in a circle. And we've got to stop off at different checkpoints to do team building exercises. So I've said to the lads I'm looking after, I said, lads, I've looked at the map. We're going in a big circle. I don't know about you, but these bags are really heavy. Let's just stash them, right? Stash them in this bracken here, and we'll get them later in the day. All right? So I said, take the crisp out and the M&Ms though. So we're walking through Sandhurst on a jolly, right? What I didn't know was all the trainee captains, they've been out all week and the wet food, they're starving. Yeah. And then we're walking through, whistling, eating M&Ms off and round and saying we can't because we'll fail. So we carry on. We get to the first checkpoint and there's these oil drums and pieces of wood where you got to balance them and walk on them. So I'm leading the group. Lads, come on, checkpoints here, let's go over. And I walked to the checkpoint, and this military man, I don't know if he was a sergeant or a captain, he looks at me, looks me up and down, he says, "Where is your bag?" Ooh. I said, I tell you what, mate, what I've done is I've stashed them. I've took an executive decision. They're heavy. We're walking around all day. We don't particularly need them, so we've stashed them in the bracket. Yeah. He says, "The military, that is the most important part of your equipment for a soldier." I said, "Mate, I'm not a soldier. I'm not a soldier. I'm just here for a couple of days." Then he started shouting at me again. And I said, "You know what? I didn't expect this." Right? So at this point, he's right in my face. He's shouting and screaming, and he's spitting all over me. And I'm just saying, "Yeah, I'm using my initiative. Surely you're gonna help me out for this." And he said, "No." Next minute, he makes some call on a radio. 2 dummies turn up on stretchers, 100-kilogram dummies. I had to carry these around now for 2 days. It's like, hang on a minute. So we did all this. Team building.
What would have happened if you had said to him, "We're just going to leave the dummies here"? Then they'd have got the England management and they'd have been disciplined.
But you know, the one thing about it was, right, we did all this, and I was rubbish at it because I've got no interest in any team building exercise. Yep. I get to know people, but not by carrying dummies or pieces of string in trees. Yeah. The people who were best at doing that, as soon as it hit the fan on the cricket pitch, went hiding, disappeared. But they're good at string string challenges. Rob Key had him next to me all the time. Steve Armisen, every day of the week. Yeah. I never forget Stephen Kirby, though. I love him to bits. He didn't carry this dummy all day. And then we got to end, and then they're all waiting, all army and all managers. He grabbed one end of it, started running. Come on, lads, let's push it through. Come on, push it through. It's off.
I think what it is, I think these teams now have such big budgets that they think, we need to spend something. And if we win, I can point back to this visionary idea that we sent people to Sandhurst. In actual fact, what is it going to do to the competitive edge when you're on a cricket field? Absolutely nothing. Have you had any experience?
Oh, the team building. See, with cricket, obviously, they tour a lot. So they'll be away for months at a time together as a group.
Yeah.
But in football, obviously, you will not be together for a large period of time unless it's a trip away. Mm-hmm. And I just think, just from my own personal experience in teams I've played for, the team building trips away were basically a chance for professional athletes to get hammered. Yeah. Simple as that. You know that, and to get hammered. And I wasn't a big drinker, never have been. So for me, you know, whether Dubai, whether it was, Mallorca, Marbella, La Manga was the one when we went with Leicester City, and it was Stan Collymore with a fire extinguisher. Do you remember?
No, go on.
It was in all the papers when went to La Manga, team building trip. Martin O'Neill stayed at home because he didn't like going away with the team. Mm-hmm. John Robertson took it with Steve Walford. Anyway, the lads were hammered on the plane. Mm-hmm. Get to the hotel, beautiful hotel. One of the, I think it was Rosenberg was staying there, all very professional. We get in, an English football side, you know, all the lads were hammered. It was embarrassing, really. You look back now, embarrassing. That continued on, went out that night, even more drink was involved, get back to the piano bar, and Stan, you know, and I like Stan, you know, he got a fire extinguisher, let it off, sprayed the whole room. People, people. It was all made national headlines in the newspapers. You know, it was the foam. Everybody, all in dicky balls, were dancing, all covered in foam. We got sent home, and basically it was drink fueled. Yeah. You know, so for me, team building.
Why are the football managers thinking that the best way for the players to bond is to go to a party town? Is that just the tradition in football? You've never done anything of the kind that Fred has done.
I think, Nigel Clough took us to Plymouth or Cornwall or somewhere of that part of the world. Are they in the same area? Yeah. No? They need each other.
Yeah.
It was cliff jumping. So basically,
cliff jumping.
And to be fair, that was good because that was a fear.
Yep.
You know, it was a fear. Not a great swimmer.
Cliff jumping.
Yeah. So we go onto the top of a cliff.
I get it. I get the concept, Rob. It's pretty self-explanatory. Cliff jumping.
Yeah, but they went up in stages. Yeah. So X amount of meters. I can't remember what it was. 10 meters. 20 meters, and as captain, I had to go first in every one. And I've got to say, I was petrified.
Yeah,
you know, but I'd done it, and then everybody followed, and that I got a sense of it helped me personally because I felt a sense of achievement. But the worst thing,
how did it help your football career?
Well, but it basically gives us you would say
the playing at altitude.
Which I never
got to be on top of an hill.
Yeah,
it's cracking it.
But it was good because at the time. It's helped me have a sense of achievement doing something. So I suppose, as a footballer, in a moment where things aren't going well, did it help? Not really, but it was just good to get away with a group of lads where drink wasn't the main thing.
It seems to be bigger in cricket, doesn't it? I'm reading about this one. 4 days before the England team were due to fly to Australia for a 3-month tour in 2013, they're desperate to go home, have a few days with the family, preserve their strength for the rigours of the tour. They go to Stoke on an SAS-style team-building mission. They had to sit down in a classroom and figure out how to use walkie-talkies. They're given instructions in the art of covert surveillance.
Why?
And then they've got to stop this guy from committing a crime. So at 5 a.m. one morning, Stuart Broad and Ben Stokes are in a back alley staking out a terrace house, but they don't know how to use a phonetic alphabet over the walkie-talkie. So Broad says, Team Black Hawk down, Alpha Bravo, Potato, Onion Samosa, 5-9 in Golf Course Mike, Team Hotel over. The next day, they've got to eavesdrop on a chap in a pub on the edge of Stoke. This is Stokes, Boyd, Rankin, Pryor, Cook and Peterson sitting in an old-fashioned boozer. Jonathan Trott is outside, keeping an eye on the possible getaway. What happens? He gets surrounded by a crowd of people asking for autographs and he misses the whole thing. So they have this days.
What is
of
that
completely
about?
meaningless
lost me as well.
activity.
Get it nets, go on interview.
Exactly.
Go on bowl, go
But
on
why
catch
the
a few.
infatuation in cricket?
I don't know, I don't like it, don't ask me.
So wait, imagine you're a coach, Fred. We talked last week about how you are mentoring your boys who are very, very good at cricket. And I think from what you were saying, you'd be a brilliant coach if you were trying to create a sense of team cohesion. You're running the England team or you're running the Lancashire team. Would it just be practice in the nets, or would you do anything a bit out of the ordinary to get them to bond in a more successful way?
I think it's a dangerous thing when you try and get people to bond. Because you're not all going to get on and, you know, doing a covert mission with Kevin Peterson. You know, what's that about? Or Jonathan Trott on a walkie-talkie. Oh, man, heck.
Do you know what I wouldn't do, Fred?
What?
Curfews.
Curfew's pointless.
So why?
I'm an adult.
I've been on team bonding trips where the manager will set a curfew, and curfews are there to be broken, especially when drinks involved. I've seen people going through windows. I've seen people, you know.
I got the wrong room at the hotel as well. I dived through an open window and there's a fella in bed.
No, shut up.
Promise you.
Not one of your teammates.
I don't know. No, he's about 70.
No.
I dived. It was in Taunton.
No way.
We'd come in, England under 19s. There was me, Alex Morris. Who else? Gareth Batty. Who's still playing, and Anthony McGrath. I don't know why he'd gone home early from the nightclub. So he said, we got no key, he said, I'll leave the window open. So what we did was we went to hotel reception, already in on the roundabout at Taunton, and all the managers are still in the bar, they're having a drink, so we thought, we can't go through the bar. So we went to the petrol station down the road to have a regroup, get a packet of Watsits. So while we're thinking, we think, right, what we do? And then we saw this window, which Mag said he'd keep open, so we thought we'll go through the window. But instead of like going through the window, just carefully. Oh no, we ran at it. Alex Morris has dived through. I dived through on the top of Alex Morris, and then Bats is halfway through. And this fella, bless him, jumps out of bed, and he was like, oh, "That's not Mag, did it? It looked like you." Yeah. So we jumped out, and then we decided we're going to go up the fire exit. So we're banging on the windows to get the fire exit open. We're playing against South Africa. Mark Boucher, who played for South Africa, he was under 19. He's let us in, gone to bed. As we're walking through, alarms have gone off, so security have now come to get us.
No way.
So we got rumbled anyway.
Yes, I think curfews are the worst thing because, you know, they're there to be broken, and you know, you go against the rules. I've had managers waiting in reception, counting people in, knowing that they're late. You know, and the worst thing is that, listen, everybody I've been involved in, the majority are professional people. But when you go on these trips, whether it's pre-season or whatever, and the manager gives you a night out and you break the curfew, the last thing you want is the next day in training, lads to be drunk. And I've had a few who have been drunk in training and been sent in.
Really?
You know, and then that spoils it for everybody. You mean?
Sorry. I spoiled it for a few.
But it does. So the team bonding trips,
So let me ask you.
it's just for a group of lads to go away and to have a drink. That's what I think it is.
I mean, wouldn't you say that management does have a role to play in trying to create an environment where people want to work for each other and play for each other? I mean, I'm imagining you, Robbie, running the Welsh football team, or you, Fred, running the England cricket team. I'm not thinking that closely about Robbie running the Welsh football team. What would you do? You wouldn't have a curfew, but you don't want, as management, the players to be hungover when they come in. How would you ensure that they were doing the right thing?
Do you know, if you're a footballer or you're a cricketer, right? I presume that all the way through your childhood, your life, has been building up to do this. This is the one thing that you are so excited about doing. This is the one thing that you've worked for all your career. So when you get there, I think you mentioned a second ago, it's down to the coach to create an environment where everybody wants to be involved in with a common goal, which is winning and being successful. By going to Sandhurst or going to Lake District and swimming in Windermere, you're passing the buck. You're not doing your job. It should be an environment which you've created anyway. There should be nothing more satisfying that brings you together more than the sport in which you're doing.
So like Bumble was able to do that. You felt it.
He didn't get it right all the time. But because everybody wanted to play for him and everyone respected him, they got involved. We went on one with Lancs to Oakham Brook. You know, we did the Krypton Factor Assault course. We went to do the Krypton Factor Assault course. It turned out to be fun. It was quite a fun day out. We We didn't get much of it, but it was fun. But I turned up late. I'm not very good at them, so I've turned up late. I had a Porsche Boxster. I turned up with roof down. And it was cloudy.
To be fair, with the size of you, you'd have to have the roof down in a Porsche Boxster.
I felt a bit rough. I've been out the night before, so I've rocked up. All the lads are ready to go off on a run before they do the assault course. I've turned up, got Smooth FM, burting out, roof down. The army lads aren't having it. So I've got out, I've shut the door, just left the car in the middle of the car park. So just give us a second, lads, I'll be with you in a minute. To which point, he just come down on me like a ton of bricks. Instead of doing what we were going to do, we did probably 3 or 4 times more. So all the lads were like, not happy.
Yeah.
But I don't get it. I don't get why they're going on covert missions. I just can't buy into it.
Don't you think they want to seem imaginative? And actually getting people to play better at cricket or football, that's quite a difficult thing to do. Whereas you go away and say, oh, I've taken them to the army, to the SAS, we've given them cliff jumping, where you go up a cliff and you jump off. Is that it? It sounds kind of innovative, doesn't it? But actually, it's a distraction from what they should be doing.
One of the things which I like, I really do, and I don't know what it's like in football because it's a different sport and players move clubs, but if someone needs to motivate themselves or needs motivation, I don't want them in my team.
Yeah.
Go away. That's the motto the SAS use as well. If you need motivating, you're not right for what we're doing. But I really like being surrounded by former players. I like to listen to their stories.
Yep.
I like feeling part.
Former cricketers rather than ex-rowers.
Oh, don't even get me. I've been there on a team building exercise at Leander Club.
Did you?
Yeah, pulling a stick. Easy. Easy.
Pulling a what?
Pulling a stick. Rowing. Did have happened there and then.
Was that in England?
England. Yeah. I got so drunk the night as well. I could still,
you were just going down the
do
Thames?
it hungover next morning. Hey, I didn't get knighted. Right? But I can't even remember what I was saying. What was it?
I think I interrupted you.
I like listening. Do you know when you... to me, there's nothing better for a Lancashire lads to sit around and have dinner with all the great ex-Lancashire players. And they all talk about what it means to them and how much the club means.
Absolutely.
And they talk about their experience.
I agree with you.
England were bad at doing it, but Andrew Strauss has brought it in. They had an England player. I didn't go, actually. I couldn't go, but they had an England former players dinner. I think that's so better than going to the Leander Club and doing a bit of rowing or climbing a tree. Or
that's what I'd do now. You know, if I was
not
manager,
agree. Do you know what, Freddie? That it's so powerful because it's not just you hear somebody who's achieved great things and you can draw personal lessons from them, but the fact that they played in the same team, in the England team historically, it makes you realise that the pride and the honour of being a part of that dynamic. I think that has so many different dimensions to it, and
responsibility as well.
Exactly.
And I think All Blacks that transcends whatever you think about someone.
Yeah,
doesn't matter if I like you or I don't like you. What we're doing is bigger than that.
Yes.
And then when we walk out on a field, we got one common goal.
Yep.
We don't have to be mates. I don't want to push you up a tree. I don't want to go and have a pint with you. I don't want to have dinner with you. But when you're out on that pitch, I would do anything for you.
Yeah.
That's what you need to create.
Robbie, when it comes to international football, I mean, am I right in thinking the team dynamic's really important? There's a real honour to representing your country, unless you get the call during the close season. But Mark Hughes, was he good at building that team dynamic?
Brilliant. But as I said in previous podcasts, you know, it was like for the first 3 or 4 days, it was like a stag do. You'd rush to get there. The drinking mentality was there. If you didn't drink, you didn't feel part of it. You know, but I remember Mark Hughes said a great statement once. We were playing a game, an important game, and as before, when the lads would meet up and have a drink, there was this huge game. I remember he pulled the captain, Gary Speed, and then Gary Speed told the lads, and he said, Sparky said, and Sparky was Mark Hughes, said, Speedo asked him, could the lads go out? So he said, listen, you got a huge game coming up. I know you'll do the right thing. So basically, that was the words the manager used. So then in your head, you're thinking, I know what the right thing to do is. You know, some of the lads still went out, but I'm led to believe, but most didn't. So the right thing to do was not to go out.
Yeah.
So, you know, managers always playing games here, always testing your psychology.
Going back to what Fred was saying, the fact that he was a Welsh hero himself, he'd played for the country.
I never wanted to let him down. So whatever he said, I'd have done.
Yeah.
I mean, because he was my hero, as we spoke about.
I think that the All Blacks do it really, really well. They take the shirt and they want to leave it in a better place because they see that their responsibility for playing for this team. There's national pride bound up with it. They know about the history.
They embrace the culture as well.
They do. And that's such a powerful thing that builds team cohesion. I think that is a much more powerful thing than these arbitrary, superficial team-building exercises that sound good but actually don't do much.
Well, I remember when the Aussies went to Gallipoli.
Yeah.
And they went there, and whether you want to call it a team-building exercise, but you got the sense that when they went there, they realised, or it reaffirmed, what playing for Australia and what they're representing, as opposed to, you know what, if we go there, me and you are going to get on better. I don't subscribe to that. We went to Ypres in Belgium, and we went round and we saw the ceremony, we saw the graves, and we saw all the English soldiers who were given. And there's a life experience and a national pride that was far greater than... I didn't get on with any of the lads any better.
Yeah, sure.
To be honest with you, I got on with them worse because I slept in one morning and missed a bit and nobody got me up. So I was seething. But yeah, I think from that point of view, but come on, don't tell me. I swam in Windermere for one of them and I won because I was cold. It was nothing to do with trying to not let my teammates. And it was freezing. It was December.
Yeah, well, I think...
give me a break.
I think we got a conclusion here. Team building exercise is complete waste of time.
So to motivational quotes. Same bracket for me, that point.
Dead right.
The successful novelist. A body at the bottom of the staircase. Beyond reasonable doubt. The new podcast phenomenon from BBC 5 Live. Download and subscribe now.
Topic number 2. Now, this was inspired by Stephen Powell, who came in on Twitter. You're hosting a dinner party for yourself and 3 guests. Which 3 people would you invite? But, Robbie, I understand you got a twist on this.
Has he got a twist?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this, Matthew. So basically, we got a party, a dinner party, and there's us 3, and we can invite 3 people. We got a table of 12, like that, my maths. Right? Us 3 and 3 each is 9.
All right,
12.
it's fine.
Right? So basically...
Should we give him a round of applause? Yeah, good. That's good.
So what we've got to do, 3 people...
Was maths one of the 7 GCSEs?
Yes, it was a B. So basically, the 3 people you can invite, you can either like all of them, you can dislike all of them, you can like some and not others, yeah?
Okay, so you can choose people you want to be there and others like a dinner party from hell.
Are you going to kick us off with one? Then?
Yeah, but what we've got to do is, Matthew, so I'm going to ask you who your first is, and then you've got to ask Fred, Fred asks me, yeah, and we go round like that.
Okay.
But what you've got to do, you've got to impersonate the person.
Oh.
You can't tell us who it is. You can't tell us who it is. We've got to guess.
Matthew does it in the voice
of the person.
And then introducing himself
to
who I'm going to be.
Yeah.
And then I'll introduce who I am, and you can...
Yeah, but you can't say the person's name. So you've got to try and do it as your best. But Matthew, I'll be upless. Fred will be quite good, I think. So you've got...
Do I do it in their character, or do I have to...
Be them, of their voice and their character. But you can't say as who you are. So your first guest... Matthew at our dinner party to end.
Thanks for letting me know. Thanks for letting me know, Rob.
Ready?
Guys, don't mention the war.
That's Matthew Syed.
Guys,
he's come as himself.
Don't mention the war. I mentioned it once, but I think I got away with it. Yes,
John Cleese. Really?
Yeah.
Why John Cleese then?
Right. So the background to this, I love.
It wasn't your impression. It was when you said don't mention the war.
Exactly.
I don't know if you realise you're on radio because your hands were going then.
And his legs were kicking up.
What were you doing?
I was trying to get into character.
I'm going to perform CPR.
So you know John Cleese, what he's done as
Fawlty
a
Towers.
Fawlty Towers, Monty Python,
Dribble.
Life of Brian.
Life of Brian's
Meaning
my
of
favourite
Life.
all-time film.
So I think one of the most important cultural influences, somebody I have loved, I can recite Fawlty Towers almost off by heart, and I've always wanted to meet him, So I'm in a cafe in Chelsea, near where he happens to live, called you two.
Do you go anywhere where they charge less than £1,000 a square foot? Where are you from?
What, originally? Reading.
You forgot that, hadn't you? It was Royal Ascot last week with your friends. This week he's in Chelsea with John Cleese. Oh, man.
So he was on the next table. And you know when you're in the vicinity of your all-time hero, a lot of people maybe would have a couple of drinks and think, I'm going to go and introduce myself. I didn't want to ruin his evening by going over and saying, I really like Fawlty Towers. He must get that all the time. So I resisted the temptation. Got home, and my wife said, why didn't you just go over and introduce yourself? You've always wanted to meet him. Then, about 6 months later, me and my wife are on holiday at a hotel in Bath. Is that all right?
No, it's posh.
Okay.
Is it Hotel de Van?
No.
Is it a spa?
It was.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a very small hotel. John Cleese, a boutique hotel.
It's not cheap if John Cleese isn't there, is it?
He's there with his wife, and it's like a restaurant. There's only about 5 tables in there.
You sure you wasn't stalking him?
Yeah, that's right. That's what I was doing. And so we're with him for like 4 days. Again, didn't say a word to him. And then I'm doing this Radio 4 documentary series, as I've mentioned probably a couple of 100 times already on the podcast. And I thought there was an opportunity to meet him because I thought he could make a contribution to it. So I get in touch, and he says, yes, we'll do it. Go through my agent. We'll do it. And then I said, would it be okay perhaps to go for dinner after? He said, yes. And this is a few weeks ago. I've got to tell you, they say don't meet your heroes. 3 hours. We talked about Fawlty Towers. We talked about Python. We talked about Life of Brian. He was bright. He was very funny. Do you know the most wonderful thing of all? He was so kind and generous with his spirit. It's just the two of us sat in this restaurant. He asked about me, about my life, about my family. It was.
Did you mention the podcast?
I mentioned the podcast, which he hadn't listened to, unfortunately. He'd never heard of you. Which
Really?
surprised me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why are you pointing a Freddie?
But it was just incredible. I told him stuff about me that I don't think I told. So we talked last week about friendships.
Yeah.
We've been in a lot of email touch since I'm open. He will become a good friend.
That's your first guest.
That's my first.
No.
guest.
John Cleese.
So, Matthew, now.
So, who are you going to invite, Fred?
It's a pleasure to meet you, John. Ladies and gentlemen, Robbie Savage.
Elvis Presley.
Yes.
Elvis Presley.
That was Barack Obama.
Yeah, do you know, I thought that for a moment.
Do it again.
Barack Obama.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic quiff, Robbie.
Who was that?
That was his brother. Elvis Presley. I love Elvis Presley.
Go on, why?
It started off, I left school. I'd signed for Lancashire when I was 16. I was going to play the following year, but I didn't get paid all winter.
Yep.
I wanted to go to Australia and play cricket, but my mum wouldn't let me. She said, you're too young.
Yep.
So I got a job behind the record counter at Woolworths in Preston. Elvis's Essential Collection came out, and I was hooked.
Yeah.
Couldn't stop listening to it.
Oh, it's
He's cool as well. So come on, Rob, who's your guest?
Yeah. So my first guest is
Nicky Clark. Nicky Clark.
Gail Platt. Gail Platt. Who else? An Afghan hand. Who else? Anybody else? Who else? Anybody else? My first guest. So I'm going to talk to you, Matthew. So, Matthew, I just can't say my essence. It's 007.
What can you not do? His accent or just your essays?
Hires. Hey, Miss Moneypenny. It's Sean Connery.
No, I knew as soon as you started.
What did you say
I
then?
just wanted to put you
just
through
left
some
you
agony.
hanging.
So James Bond.
Yeah.
So James Bond, because I love James Bond, and what James Bond
Is it
reminds...
James Bond or Connery
So
himself?
I just could only do James Bond. I could only do
Go on,
Sean
do
Connery.
Timothy Dalton.
I can't.
That is not easy.
Can't.
Lazenby.
Can't. I'm just going to do Sean Connery.
Roger Moore.
Can't. But I just didn't do Sean. Was he a good Sean
I
Connery?
thought it was all right.
It's all right.
Well, just because James Bond, because what James Bond reminds me of,
Yep.
believe it or not, is Christmas. Because James Bond...
That's Santa, Rob. That's Santa. I tell you what, you get mixed up, don't you? That's him with a white beard and a red suit. James Bond, he wears a suit, but he drives an Aston Martin, not a sleigh.
James Bond, because 3 o'clock, you'd have the Queen's speech on, and then, but every Christmas growing up, a James Bond film would be on in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And all the family would get round the TV.
Who's your favourite ever Bond? Because there's been a lot of...
Roger Moore and Sean Connery, those two are brilliant.
Daniel Craig?
I like Daniel Craig as well, but Roger Moore...
I don't get Bond.
Oh, it's brilliant, James
You're
Bond.
not into Bond.
No,
Really?
never have been.
You could be the next James Bond.
Yeah, Northern Bond.
You could
yeah.
be.
I'll tell you what.
Hello,
Fred.
Miss Moneypenny. You all right? Have a pint of lager. Don't shake it. I don't get it because
Oh, it's brilliant. I love
It's
James
like
Bond.
the epitome of British cool. It's
brilliant.
Isn't it?
is he cool? He's an old man.
Yeah, he's cool.
He's an old man who's got no particular skills.
It's
But
cool.
I watched some of the old ones, and I think
Brilliant.
that Daniel Craig's moved the character on, though, hasn't he? A grittier Bond.
I think it's brilliant. So, James Bond.
Okay.
So, yours. So
My second dinner party guest.
You've got to try and put an accent on.
Okay. Oh, thank you for inviting me, Robbie. It's lovely to be here, but we are not amused.
Matthew Syed.
Keep going.
And it's lovely to be here.
Margaret Thatcher.
During my reign as
The Queen.
the Queen.
Hello.
Queen. That's better. Mine was rubbish. I didn't. I would have practiced if I'd known that this was going to be
the
a part
Queen?
of the
Is that the
podcast.
Queen?
It was a poor attempt at the Queen. But just think about how interesting she would be as a guest. This person who has been the monarch during the prime ministership of Winston Churchill in Eden and all the way through to Thatcher and Major, has been part of the establishment and who has been the head of state, and yet we know so little about who she is, her life, what she thinks about the world. She's lived this extraordinary life of duty and honour. What does she think about having been born into that role and having to discharge those duties, about the ironies of being famous, about having... I mean, I think she's an extraordinary woman. I think it'd be absolutely incredible to get to know what she really thinks about the world.
The Queen. Fred.
Fred.
Me.
Knock, knock, knock.
Guess number 2.
Hello. Hello. I'm Sachin Tendulkar. Hello, Robbie. Hello. Hello, Elizabeth. Hello, Elvis. That's it.
That's Sachin Tendulkar.
Sachin Tendulkar.
Yeah.
Growing up, only people I was ever excited about were cricketers.
Yeah.
Cricketers, and I used to watch on the TV. I loved your Viv Richards and these guys, but then Sachin's probably 3 or 4 years older than me. I've said it before. I was playing Lancashire under-13s. He was playing international cricket.
Yeah.
Never did I think at that age I would share a cricket field with him.
Mm-hmm.
I would bowl at him. I would get him out. I would talk to him, no matter how briefly. And this dinner party, for me, is a chance to get to know Sachin, to take our relationship to the next level. So far, I'm like a tongue-tied teenager.
Really?
Where when I see him, do you know when you're in a nightclub as a kid and you see a girl and you wanted to talk to her and you've got nothing to say to him, and you go over.
Robbie knows what that's
Oh,
like.
and he's
You
2
must-
pairs of trousers.
Not you. Got laid twice in the Olympic Park. Wow.
So Sachin, I get a chance to talk to him.
Yeah.
All the things that you could ask him, obviously about cricket, about what it feels like to go out there, 1 billion people, the pressures, the notoriety, everything. So Sachin Tendulkar.
Fred, you said that you have met lots of famous cricketers and you've met lots of famous people. This is one of the people you're actually in awe of. You find it quite difficult to be yourself because of the adulation.
I don't know what to say to him.
Really?
Yeah, I really don't. And there's so many people I've met and I'm just not that bothered.
Yeah.
And
Have you-
I
did you ever-
find it easier sitting next to the Queen at this dinner party
Wow.
than I would Sachin.
That's really interesting. Did you ever get him out?
Yeah,
How many times?
a few.
Did you?
Yeah, I got him out on 99 once. He didn't hit it. I felt really bad.
We were talking about
Get
this.
off.
We were talking about this yesterday, saying that you had success against him. Was it with the high ball, the bouncer? Was
Yeah,
it?
I used to go at him quite hard because Indians historically play on low, slow pitches and they play the spin well. It's the complete opposite to what we play.
Right.
So I used to go at him hard and had some success against him, tried to intimidate him, which sounds really bizarre. But yeah.
Tell you, this is a dinner party and a half. Cleese,
So who we got so
Elvis
far? So we got
Presley,
John Cleese,
James
Elvis
Bond.
Presley,
Sean Connery.
James Bond, Sean Connery, but James Bond,
Yep.
the Queen, and now Sachin Tendulkar.
Wow.
I'm going to follow up with this guy.
Excited.
Hang on, let me go. Yeah.
Ramsey Nesbitt.
Yes, I've got this. Got the accent right. Yeah. You gotta do that bit better, son. You gotta do that bit better, and you gotta play the ball there, son.
Alex Ferguson.
Yes,
That is, hang on, it morphed from a Scottish accent to a Yorkshire
I
accent.
did. I got that, and then I got the football bit.
Yeah, so Alex Ferguson. Do you know why?
I'll tell you what, I agree with you on the choice of Ferguson.
Oh, really? Oh,
From my own personal point of view is, and what a great tale we've got already, because I wasn't good enough to play for Manchester United, and the reason I had was because there were better players than me there at the time, as a centre forward, Paul Scholes, Mark Hughes, Brian McClare.
At the time, they were better.
Yeah, and where?
Rob, you got to remember
Yeah.
that this dinner party now is just taking a turn for the worse.
Why?
Because he's going to be there with Sir Alex Ferguson.
Yeah.
Everyone's just going to be listening to Matthew asking Alex, oh, he's a great bloke, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'll tell you later.
Oh, that's good. That's better than mine, friend.
That was a brilliant.
And I'd like to know what he thought about how was his process of recognising that he wasn't good enough, and it was a right decision for me, of course it was. But then now, what I'd like to say now is, what did he think of my career in terms of...
Hang on, you're not going to ask him about how he created the most successful English team in the history of the sport.
wants
You're
answers. Robbie wants answers.
You're going to ask him why they let you go.
But we know that, but from my own personal point of view, he's my guest.
Closure, bit of closure.
Closure.
Yeah.
A closure saying, when I played against his sides, did he think I would have achieved what I achieved in terms of playing 350 Premier League games? And what was the process of him letting me go? Yeah. So, and looking over my 20-year career, was there ever part of him would have thought, do you know what, maybe, just, I don't think it would have been, but it would have been great to know, wouldn't it?
And it was interesting that in the team talk...
At least he wouldn't have to stay long, would he? just popping in. It's a no, Robbie. Thanks for having us.
So that actually happened. So basically, have I told the story about the shirt, David Beckham shirt?
No.
So basically, play for Birmingham against Manchester United at Old Trafford. Said to Bex, because I wasn't one for collecting shirts, and I've got a few really nice ones. So I said to Bex, after the game, do you mind if I have a shirt? He said, yeah, but ask Albert the kit man.
Yeah.
So I went to ask,
Morgan, famous kit man.
Yeah. So I went to ask Albert, and he said, you better ask the boss. Mm-hmm. So I thought, oh wow, do you mean this is Sir Alex Ferguson? Mm-hmm. He let me go. Man United won the game. So anyway, the change room at Old Trafford, the away dressing room, as you come out the door, to the left about 5 yards was the boss's room.
Yep.
So I built the courage up to knock on his door. So listen, God's honest truth, knock on the door. He opened the door and he went, hi, Robert. He's going to be Robert. Mm-hmm. And I went, hi, Sir Alex. I said, David said I could have a shirt. So did Albert. They've said to come and ask you, do you mind if I have David's shirt? He went, no. That was it.
Wait, no, he don't mind, or no, he don't have it?
He just went, no. And shut the door.
In other words, no, you can't have it.
He said no.
He just shut the.
Just said no. I went right. Oh, thanks, and just turned around, and walked, and the door was shut.
Interesting, Rob.
Yeah.
Why do you want him at your dinner party then?
Because I want to know.
Obviously, don't like you.
Well, to me, it's just no.
It's interesting. So you really felt quite nervous and intimidated knocking on the door of Sir Alex Ferguson. He has that aura, does he, amongst football?
Of course. Sir Alex Ferguson, the most successful manager, with probably Brian Clough, who I held up there with Sir Alex. But it was just like, wow, I built all this courage to ask for a shirt, and it was no. That was it, simple as that. And then I lived next door to him for 6 months and never seen him once.
What?
Lived next door to him for 6 months when I first moved to Manchester.
Did you?
Yeah, next door. Never seen him once. Never seen him. And I suppose about the drive of the guy, when I left my house,
he was always up early.
He had gone, and when I got back, he wasn't there. The work ethic, that guy. What the guy is a legend, obviously, but I'd love him at the dinner party.
I'd like him at the dinner party as well, because I'd like to have a little chat with him. Mm-hmm. I really would, because the last time I saw him, I really embarrassed myself. I'd had a few too many, and it was at a function where we mentioned the other week with Colin Montgomery, and Sir Alex was there. Mm-hmm. And even though I'm not a United fan, I'm not massively into football, this is Sir Alex Ferguson, someone who, as a sportsman, you have so much respect for, and you don't want him thinking you're a knobhead. So I would like to have a chat with Sir Alex and say, look, that wasn't really what I'm like. Yeah. I really would.
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
there
really
you go. So we got great.
But this last thing on Sir Alex, you played at United for quite a while.
But I never played
as a youth player. Did you ever get to know him? Did you feel that you knew him as a human being at all?
Not really, no. Not really. It was Eric Harrison, fantastic coach.
What a coach he was.
What a coach. It was Eric Harrison more. So, no, I never really got to know Sir Alex, but, I wish I could have. Matthew, so far we've got, who were you first? John Cleese.
John Cleese and the Queen.
Elvis
and Sachin.
James Bond and Sir Alex. Matthew, your third one. Let's let this one go a bit.
Yeah.
Close your eyes and I'll kiss you.
They've got to do it in the voice of the person.
I can't do it.
Well, keep singing.
Okay. It's I'm struggling.
Come on.
Thank you. How do I do it? How do I do Paul McCartney?
Oh. You've ruined it now, haven't you?
I don't even know what a Liverpool accent. I'm trying to think how it would go. Yeah, calm down. I would like to come in for.
You reckon Paul McCartney?
Oh, I
said
can't do it. Is this
Paul
a reason?
McCartney, you've just done Paul McCartney as Harry Enfield from the Scousers. Calm down, Eddie, calm down. You do, don't it, Paul? You do, don't it, eh? Bummin' heck. Paul McCartney.
Calm down.
Calm down. How many times have you heard Paul McCartney talk about stereotyping people? Your next one's probably going to nick a few wheels off some cars. Oh, my word. Calm down, Paul McCartney. All the songs he's sung, all the music he's written. The person you want at a dinner party who you hold in such high esteem, the one thing you come out with is calm down.
So, Matthew, why Paul McCartney? Sir Paul McCartney.
Yeah, Sir Paul McCartney. The reason is because I think he came from a tough background, working class background, and through drive, initiative, brilliant teamwork with John Lennon, I think he changed the world. The Beatles, the way that they changed the nature of the 1960s, the brilliant albums he put together with Wings, some of his solo career. I also think he's interesting because that first marriage to Linda, apparently they didn't spend one night apart.
No.
Such a solid, brilliant relationship. I'd love to find out about what motivated him, about the songs that he thinks were the best, what it was like to be in the spotlight in that extraordinarily transformative era, the relationship with John, but also with George, who was a brilliant songwriter. I think he's very close still to Ringo. I'd love just to know all about that. I'd love to get to... And I do respect him a lot as a human being, too.
Andrew.
Although I tell you what, that accent is just embarrassing.
Yeah, it was. Andrew, your third and final guest.
I have come to have an intellectual conversation with Robbie Savage.
Okay, so the Professor.
The Professor, Stephen Hawkins. Might be a long do, but I reckon. Imagine having the opportunity to pick his brains for a while. You know,
I mean, what an extraordinary man to have gone through what he went through, thought he was going to die months later, and he's created some of the most complex and enriching physics theories in the history of the world. But you've actually met Professor Hawkins.
Yeah, but I've drunk tequila with him. But did you know one thing about Stephen Hawkins is that I don't know how you go about this. I don't know. Obviously, he's got all these philosophies on the sky and all that. But I'm more interested in just normal stuff.
Yeah.
What he thinks about normal things. What he thinks about the way in which the country's in, or way in politics, or world events. I'm not really bothered what he thinks about some stars. I can't do it with them.
You're not worried about the black holes and things like that.
Well, why would you be?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Stephen Hawkins. I don't know what I'd say to him. I don't know what he would say either. Do you know? I think that's the nicest thing about Stephen Hawkins is where my other one's Elvis. I know what I'd say to him. We'd talk about music. We'd have a sing-song. He'd get the guitar out. We'd all wear a jumpsuit. And then you've got Sachin Tendulkar, which will all be cricket.
Yeah.
But Stephen Hawkins, I've got no idea. I have literally no idea.
Great point. This public figure, we don't know much about his politics and what he thinks about the world, rather than what he thinks about the galaxies.
Because we get all these people, don't we, who have forced opinions, who've not even got an ounce of brains he has.
Yep.
Well, I'd love to have a chat with him.
Brilliant. Last one.
So my last one, I can't do the accent because.
Well, what you could do the others.
But he's English. But he just
do
like
English accent then.
Well, but it's a bit controversial because I don't know if it is controversial. But
we'll just do it and we'll tell you.
The reason why I'd have this person is right. So, good morning, Britain. What was that? Good morning, Britain. Oh, Coming up today, we've got this. That's horrendous, isn't it? You know who it is?
No, keep going.
Good morning, Britain. Susanna, what we got coming today? Susanna.
Ben
Susanna.
Shepherd.
No. You know who it is, guys.
No, I don't know. Dan Walker.
I'll tell you what. Arsenal, Wenger out. Well, where's Piers Morgan?
Oh, is it?
Piers Morgan.
Piers Morgan,
Do you know why? So we've got a great football manager. We've got football people. We've got sports. We've got singers. We've got actors. We've got the Queen. Piers Morgan. You imagine him at that dinner table. What he would get out of people. And for me, because I see a person on Twitter who gets so much negativity, but he believes in what he does. He believes in what he says. He sticks to his guns. And I've texted Piers on a couple of occasions saying, thanks for helping me out. I've asked him for advice because the negativity he gets, but he just gets stronger. It makes him stronger as a person. And I just love to get into the mindset of somebody like that who's been through a lot of downs and he's got lots of ups. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So for me, Piers Morgan.
I think it's an interesting choice because that thing about being widely castigated in the way that he has been. I mean, take Alistair Campbell. We were talking about abuse on the social media. We've been really delighted to actually get some love and affection on social media too. So it's not all bad. But Alistair Campbell is very abusive. But he said he's never blocked anyone. And he reads it. He wants to know what people are thinking. And it does make him stronger, so long as he feels that he is okay with the decisions that he's made. I think Piers Morgan is the same. I've got to admit, I don't think I'm strong enough to constantly look at abuse. I'd find that very difficult.
But Piers, and you know him well, Freddie.
Are you friends with him, Fred?
Yeah, I am. I wouldn't have him round, though.
You wouldn't?
No.
Why?
No, do you know why? because
he would start a fight with everyone.
It would be a great match to him at the table.
It'd be a bit overpowering, to be honest.
It'd be brilliant.
It'd be overpowering.
Would he not be brilliant at the table?
Oh, he'd ask the right questions, wouldn't he?
Oh.
He would.
Do you know, I mentioned Cleese earlier, and I had the most wonderful 3 hours of, three of the most wonderful hours of my life with him. Can you pick somebody that you've met, spent a bit of time getting to know, and you thought, you know what, that was just so uplifting. That was something I'm so glad that I've done.
Mine was Piers.
Was it?
I know people sound straight.
Are you trying to get on Good Morning Britain? Or have you got, you got a book coming out?
We can talk about.
Is this for the second series of the podcast?
We've done heroes. We've done with Mark. Everybody knows that. We've done sports. We've done all that. But wrong perceptions of people. I didn't know Piers Morgan at all. Seen him on the TV. Seen him on Twitter. Thought, wow. When I met the guy, what a fantastic bloke.
Yeah.
Really did. So, I'll think of another one, but Piers was, for me to meet him, because you heard stuff about him, he was great.
Yeah, Reader's Digest used to have a little series, The Most Amazing Person I've Ever Met. So it's
not Piers, but I'll come to mine in a minute. Yeah.
Fred, anybody? Because I get the impression you've met a lot of different people. You're not in awe of many of them. Tendulkar's an exception. But is there anybody that you've met and spent time with and thought, you know what, I'm so glad?
Merv Hughes.
No way, the Australian bowler.
Merv Hughes. Amazing. Big tash, big character. Again, I think people love to hate him. He's like a pantomime villain, everyone. But then I got to know him when I was in Australia. I spent time in the jungle with him when I did that show. And he's got one of the biggest hearts and one of the nicest people you could ever meet.
So this is I'm a Celebrity. Get me out of the Australian version. Hughes was in there with you.
3 weeks with him. And he started off annoying everyone because he was farting and burping and he's just a real Aussie larrikin.
Yeah.
And I knew him, and I knew what he was like. But it was interesting to see the impact he had on everybody else over that. After a while, everyone saw through that and then just saw this bloke who's so generous with his affection, with his time and caring, Merv Hughes.
So the final roll call on the dinner party, John Cleese, Elvis Presley, James Bond, the Queen, Tendulkar, Sir Alex Ferguson, Paul McCartney, Stephen Hawking, and Piers Morgan. Final topic of the last podcast. The question is, what have the three of us learned by doing this podcast? I've got to say, I think, personally, I've learned quite a lot. When we started doing it, I wasn't sure if it was the right fit. I wasn't sure if I might find it quite embarrassing. I didn't know what kind of questions I'd get asked. Frankly, those first 2 or 3, I felt very much outside my comfort zone. 2 things that I've massively learned from you two is you've got to be adventurous. You've got to take risks. Freddie, you in particular, Robbie too for sure, but you've done musicals. You're doing acting. You're a coach of a cricket team. You started your own business. You're constantly reaching out and challenging yourself. And I know you do it. You seem like a natural, and you are very talented at what you do. But what strikes me about you is you do things, you take it seriously, you practice hard, you prepare, and then you deliver. And I think I've learned a lot from you. And if I get an opportunity to do something that takes me out of my comfort zone in the future, I think I'll be prepared to take it in a way that I wouldn't have done at the beginning of this run.
Strictly?
With the exception of Strictly. Robbie.
What have I learned from this podcast? Well, I think this podcast has given us the platform to have a period of time where we can get to the bottom of subjects when in the industry we work in, you might get 5 minutes, but these topics have enabled us to show our true colours, to help people, I think, as well. And I go back to the mental health podcast we've done, and there's so many people saying that we've helped them, which for me, to help people from a podcast, and for people to, or tweet me saying I had my exams, you three got us through my exams, and for me to have a sense of helping people through positivity, emotion, and people, for me, as I said before, a bit of adulation. In one of the first time in my life, saying people actually have taken to me. This podcast has enabled me once again, 4 or 5 years later after Strictly, to people to think, well, yeah, do you know what? He's actually all right, and it's really, really helped me and give me confidence again.
Mm-hmm. Do you know, that's one other thing I've learned, by the way, is that when you're totally open and honest, the public give you the benefit of the doubt. We talk about how negative people can be, but actually there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of positivity out there if you're prepared to be actually open and candid about who you are, rather than trying to put on a front or an image. And that's something I think, Robbie, you do brilliantly. You wear your heart on your sleeve, and I think people have responded to that.
Well, I think I've looked at some of the daft stuff. I've learned that Robbie Savage used to own a yacht. I just can't get my head around. Captain Sav.
Yeah.
He bought a pink Porsche of his first paycheck, which was amazing. That at Blackburn, they put a pair of his skiddy unders above the canteen. Matthew Syed cheating Desmond Douglas.
Yes. Oh.
That he is in awe of David Beckham and Sir Alex Ferguson to a degree which is quite unhealthy, to be honest.
But Fred, do you know what? In this podcast, I think you've opened up where people will see you on the TV and they'll see you. But I know you as a person, quite shy, quite insecure. But on this podcast, you've really opened up, and I think it's been a fascinating trait for you to see you really opening up on something.
Do you know one of the things I found about it is that I've really enjoyed it, and I'm actually really comfortable in doing it. And whatever subject we talk about, whether it's mental health or John Terry wanting a big fanfare or whatever it may be, I feel quite comfortable talking about it. And I've realised that I actually know a little bit more, and I like sport a little bit more than I thought I did.
Yeah.
I seem to know a bit more and have opinions on things. From listening to Robbie, I think there's been certain times in this podcast where I've got a bit frustrated with him. In the fact that how you play your career down so much when you shouldn't do. With what you achieved as a footballer, for the clubs you played for. I know we all love to have a little snide gag every now and then.
Really?
And you got your best out of your talent. From a more serious point of view, I thought it was quite a privilege that we shared the things like your father's letter, when you talk about the impact it had on you. I think that there's special things that you just can't recreate.
The specials, the mental health podcast, the three of us, as Freddie says, to be in the room with you two and to speak about my father, and Freddie to go to tell people what he went through, your own personal things. I think that was such. And it gave people the opportunity to speak out, as we had so many tweets on it. It was amazing.
And with Matthew, I found myself talking different. I have a conversation with you. We talk about subjects, and I know you're a bright lad, and you've written books and black books and all that. And I hope the sales are going through the roof. But you find yourself entering conversations that you might not necessarily do, and you provoke thought in a way in which I don't really. You push buttons and then you offer an opinion, and then I've offered opinions on things which I never thought I had. And do you know the one thing which I've really enjoyed? Seeing Matthew when he came,
the clothes were rubbish the whole way through.
No, but you're a journalist, and you've done certain things in certain areas, and it's all quite regimented, or it's all quite controlled. But I think the more we've done this podcast, and I think we talk about this for all of us, is that you've started to give a lot more away. And you've started to talk about things which affect you and things which have influenced you. And I found that fascinating. I think that's probably, when I look at the podcast and look at the numbers and the charts and all that, and wonder why is this so? And I think that's one of the main reasons, because I think as it's grown, we've become more open. We talk about things, we talk about the way in which we feel. And I think people have identified within themselves, between the giggles.
Yeah. Going back to Matthew, Fred, when we discussed this podcast and John or the boss said, who would you like? And Fred come up with your name, Matthew. And I've got to say, because for me, growing up, the Times newspaper was like the Times. You've got to be so intelligent to write for the Times or be in the Times. I thought you'll be too clever, too.
It's gone downhill, though.
Aloof. Do you know what I mean? Too aloof. And I just thought that, would I get on with you? But I've got to say that the way you've helped me and encouraged me, and now I see you as a friend, because I'll phone you up now about different things, and if I'm bored for a couple of minutes, I think I'll ring Matthew, because
I got a minute. You were just giving that's a backhanded compliment. If I'm bored and nobody else is answering,
Matthew will be there.
Taxi driver.
I'll give Matthew a ring.
But because I think now I trust Matthew, so I will phone Matthew up now for advice. Whether this podcast continues or not, we don't know. But I've just got to say that my relationship with Fred's got stronger and tighter, and now is unbelievable. And in Matthew, I've got a new friend, which I'm pleased to say.
Well, thank you. So I want to finish, with your guys' permission. I want to read out some of the reviews on iTunes. And I want to start. This is the 4th of March, 2017. I've listened to the 3 podcasts and loved them. But I find myself asking why Robbie works with these two. In my mind, they hold him back. Robbie has wings and should be allowed to fly. Not having Flintoff chip in with rubbish when Robbie's in full flow, or Matthew getting in with intellectual stuff when we all know Robbie is the real brains of the show. Great show, but lose the hangers on, Rob. This was from Sav Moran.
Obviously, I think that might have been twisted a little bit by somebody in this room who might have wrote a review, because when I said in one of the previous podcasts that when our things were going against me, I put a false name on a website and said, well played, Rob.
You
didn't do this?
Doing it?
No, it was you.
Oh, come on, Robbie.
You've gone up to that now, haven't you? Pathetic, Savage, pathetic. But also, you got more?
This is Lee Rob 87, 11th of April. Huge fan of Freddie, and have always wrongly disliked Robbie. But this podcast completely turned me around on him. He's not that big a donkey after all.
So I've got teeth like one.
And then he says the ping pong guy was a perfect choice to moderate these two buffoons. I've got to give one. This is the one. There's a few negative reviews, not that many. Dominic M. Clifford, boring, dull nonsense. Thanks, Clifford. Final review, and thanks so much for posting them in. Finney73. Syed is excellent as the glue that holds everything together, posing excellent questions, providing an insight into life as an elite athlete, summarising with eloquence. As for Savage and Flintoff, they're pretty good too.
Is that you finishing with that one?
Is that all right?
Oh, narcissistic, I think's the word.
It's all about you, Matthew, why not? I could just like to say, Fred, I think you just said it. Stanley.
Yeah.
We've given Stanley a bit of stick, haven't we?
Yeah.
Throughout the podcast.
It's nice, isn't it? We get the chance to do this, but Stanley researching, Mike, John Orr give us the chance to do it. So a big thanks to everyone at BBC 5 Live as well.
Thank you to all of you in the gallery. Guys, thanks to you so much. And thank you for listening. You can download the podcast for extended versions of all the topics we covered on this week's show at the 5 Live website and all the usual podcast places. You'll find all of the podcasts we've recorded through the entire series. You can still use the hashtag FredSavSide to get in touch with us. If you could leave a review on iTunes and give us a rating, that would be great. But for now, from all of us, goodbye.
Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy.
Thank you for downloading the Flintoff, Savage and the Ping Pong Guy podcast. If you like what you hear, then why not have a look at what else 5 Live podcasts have to offer at bbc.co.uk/5 Live.